Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. YouTube.com/TWTNation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. A little late today, sorry about that. Normally we try to start on time here on the show, but today, no. Didn't happen, wasn't happening. Tech issues as usual. But we are here and we got a great show for you guys today, so don't worry, stay here for the next hour as we go around the nation for some of the best stories and progressive political commentary from around the web. Now, before I get into the breakdown of what we're going to cover today, I do want to thank the patrons always for making the show happen. Patreon.com/TWTNation. Thank you very much for your donations. They help keep this show going and growing and running and corporate sponsor free. So thank you very much to the patrons out there who support the show. So also, thank you to everybody who shares this video, gives us a like, shares with their friends, and subscribe. So thank you so much for helping us out that way as well. So what we have here today, we got a couple of stories about Trump Care. The CBO numbers came out yesterday. I'm going to talk about that. We'll break it down. Then we've got Rick Santorum going on CNN to defend this law. Then I'm going to beat up on the Democratic Party. So disastrous poll out for the Democrats. I'm going to break that down as well. Then we've got Pat McCrory looking for a job. He has he's having a little bit of a hard time getting employed. Interesting. And then another disastrous report on the powers that Donald Trump has now given to the CIA. Oh, I bet you didn't see that one coming, did you? So that's a breakdown of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. We do also have a snowstorm that's ravaging the country. Oh, absolutely nothing to do with climate change, though, because after all, global warming just means it gets warmer. Of course, that's ridiculous. Is this snowstorm influenced by climate change? Probably at least a little bit. We've had some pretty strange weather, but Michigan, it's always kind of strange here. But anyway, now, again, we've got, we'll start out here with Trump Care. We'll talk about the CBO numbers, and then we'll, as I said, I'll break this whole thing down for you guys, because that's what we do here. All right. Now, yesterday, the CBO came out with its numbers on Trump Care, and holy crap, is it bad. The analysis predicts that 24 million people will lose their insurance coverage, which, of course, will double the share of Americans who are uninsured from 10% to nearly 20% within the first 10 years. Now, the office projects that the number of uninsured people after the first year would jump to 14 million. So 14 million, the first year that Trump Care is implemented, gone. 14 million people immediately without insurance, gone. You're not going to have insurance anymore. Sad day for you under Trump Care. And then, of course, 10 million over the next 10 years. Now, what happened with the promise of covering everybody? Now, I thought everybody was going to have great health insurance, and it was going to be cheaper. Everybody was going to be covered. It was going to be fantastic. If you listen to Donald Trump at any point during this campaign when he talked about health care, he said, oh, well, Obamacare is a disaster, rising premiums, not enough people are covered. I'm going to cover everybody, and it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be better. It's going to be fantastic, tremendous, believe me. Well, this is not that. This is less people, higher premiums. And look, I haven't even gotten to how much it's going to cost. But first, one of the primary drivers is, of course, people are going to lose their Medicaid. Now, they're saying, okay, since they're going to restructure Medicaid, they're going to essentially turn it to a block grant and give it to the states. Well, the states, what they're going to do when they get this block grant is it's only going to be a fixed amount of money. You're never going to get a different or more amount of money as prices rise. And as prices rise, and they will rise, you're going to have less money to be able to change, to be able to cover everyone, which means you're going to end up dropping people from Medicaid. And again, these are the poorest, most vulnerable people that have to go on Medicaid. But no, we're going to have less money. We're going to cut that. And that's actually going to cut the deficit by $337 billion. Well, good job. Good job. You only lowered the deficit by half of what you plan to spend on the Pentagon in 1 year. And all you had to do was just kick lots and lots of people, millions of people off Medicaid. Congratulations. Real smooth there. Again, these were people that were so poor that they can't afford private insurance. But that's okay. Let's kick them out anyway. They're moochers. They're leeches on the system. Of course, that's what they'll obviously say. And that's what they say before, and that's what they've always said. Oh, these people, they don't deserve health care. They're poor. You know, health care in America, that is a luxury that only certain people should be able to have. A luxury. Well, that's fantastic. God, man. So, look. And you know, this is kind of ironic, too. Because along with some of the promises that Trump made, I'm going to save Medicare. I'm going to save Social Security. I'm not going to cut it a dime. I'm also going to protect Medicaid. Oh, oops. Another failed campaign promise. Of course. So let's get to the other promises that he's broken. Premiums. Let's talk about premiums. And the CBO also predicted that premiums would be 15 to 20% higher in the first year compared with those under the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. So everybody who was sitting there saying, oh my God, my premiums under Obamacare exploded. Well, if 15 to 20% isn't an explosion, I don't know what the fuck is. And now, while it's true, premiums increased under the ACA. They also increased every year before the ACA, but at a faster rate. So what happened is that when you passed Obamacare, yes, premiums still go up, and that was a huge problem, a huge flaw in this piece of legislation, of course. But what it did is that it slowed down the rate of premium increases, as it had increased much faster before the ACA. Well, now we're getting rid of all those protections, and here you have premiums increasing, going back to increasing just as fast, if not faster, than before the ACA. I mean, look, Trump Care, again, is going to send it up 15 to 20%. Holy hell. That's a huge increase, and people are going to notice that. People are going to feel that. And look, there is a winner, of course, in this. Now, the report states that by 2026, it is estimated that premiums will be 10% lower on average. On average. So let's look why that would be. Well, of course, older, sicker people would likely no longer be covered or be able to afford insurance because they're older and sicker. Now, that's going to leave a pool of younger, healthier people that have insurance. Well, that's great for them, right? They end up getting cheaper premiums because there's less old, sick people to take care of. And the older people, unfortunately, if you're old, sick, and poor, you are not going to be able to afford this insurance. You're essentially going to die because you have a lack of care. You are going to die, D-I-E, die, because you can't get covered. Those tax credits that they're giving out as part of this plan, they're based on age. And yes, you get a bigger tax credit when you're older, but it's not going to be, it's actually less generous than what you get under the ACA. So, disaster. Look, this is essentially social Darwinism at work, okay? And it's exactly the opposite of what insurance is supposed to do. What you need to make any insurance work is you need a large pool of healthy people. Hence the individual mandate, which is the thing that I know that everybody fucking hates. And I get it. I understand. They all hate this. But it's actually vital to making something like this actually work, because you get a large pool of healthier people that will end up subsidizing people who are poorer and sicker and older. That's how it works, man. That's insurance. And there are a lot of Republicans out there that don't understand how insurance actually works. They think that getting rid of the sick people will actually be a better option. Well, I mean, I guess if you only have healthier people in the pool, they're not paying out as much. So, of course, the premiums might be a little bit cheaper, about 10% cheaper. But what they're doing is that, essentially, they're shifting the cost to the older people who can't afford to go, who actually need that health insurance, so they're going to die. Well, those people are going to they're going to be borne a lot more of the cost. And, yes, it is fair to make older, sicker people pay a little bit more, but this is a lot more. And how it's going to shift some of that cost, as well as having the tax credit that is much less generous. You also have the ability for insurers to charge older and sicker people up to 5 times more than a healthy person. The ACA limited that to about 3 times. And then, of course, you get the CBO's result that older Americans would end up paying substantially more and younger people less. So all those people who are 40, 50 years old who are like, my premiums are too high, I'm going to vote for Trump. Well, guess what? You just voted to increase your own premiums. Because that's exactly what would happen under this plan. Sad. Now, look, I said the CBO says substantial, right? Well, let's do a comparison, right? If the GOP plan is enacted, a 21-year-old making $68,200 would pay an average of $1,450 for a year's worth of insurance premiums after the new tax credits. Now, that's compared with about $5,100 under the new law, or under the current law. So obviously, if you're 21 years old, you're young, you're healthy, and you're making $68,000 a year, which is pretty damn good for somebody who's 21. I mean, I can't think of any 21-year-old off the top of my head that was making $68,000. Whoa! That's a lot of money for somebody who's younger. Obviously. Now, they would pay more. They pay more under Obamacare right now. If Trump Care is enacted, they save quite a bit of money, actually. So if you're 21 years old and you're making a lot of money, you are doing pretty goddamn good under this law. You're one of the winners. Now let's contrast that with the 64-year-old. The 64-year-old person making, for example, $26,000 a year. Now the cost would rise from $1,700 to $14,600 a year. Holy shit, man. $14,000 a year. That is more than half your income. That is somebody who's likely still in poverty making $26,000 a year. Damn. That doesn't even count deductibles, copays, or anything else. That is your premium. That's your premium. Look, older people, especially if you're poor, you are completely and utterly fucked under this law. This just says, basically, hey, old people, you cost too much. Die already. We don't want you to have health insurance. Go in the street and keel over already so we don't have to pay for your ass. You cost us too much. I'm worried about my bottom line. I don't care about you. Because it's not the insurance company's job to care about you. All they are is a middleman. They don't actually provide health care to you. They are a middleman that is skimming profit off the top. That's all they're there for. And that's all they do. Now look, that same 64-year-old who's making $68,000 a year, well, they'd actually do better. Now he would still pay about $14,600 a year. And because he gets a tax credit, he will pay actually a little bit less than he does on Obamacare, but just barely. So basically what this is that's a giveaway to people who make more and more money. If you have more money, you actually do better under this plan, and it hurts the most poorest and the most vulnerable. And that's what this plan is all about. And so the biggest benefits go to people who have more money. And for example, people making over $200,000 and $250,000 a year, they will receive in total of about $157 billion in tax cuts. Tax cuts. The richest 400 families in America will get an average tax cut of about $7 million. So who's the real winner here? People who are wealthy. That's it. Look, if you're 21 years old and you happen to be a rich asshole, I'm not saying they all are. I'm just saying, you might be celebrating. But if you were poor and you're 21-year-old and you're poor, you still also might be hit hard. Not as hard as that 64-year-old, but you're also going to be hit. So, and that's because, again, they don't give a shit about you. They don't care about you. They don't care about health, right? If you're poor, you don't help bring in money to the donors, those health insurance companies. They don't care about you. And it's all about following the money. And we say it all the time. Follow the money, follow the money. This is all about profit over people. These insurance companies, by the way, also get a huge tax cut under this proposal, under Trump Care. They will end up making bank. Look, if you criticized Obamacare for being a giveaway to insurance companies, which I have, you have to realize that this is an even bigger gift to the rich and to the insurance companies. That's the problem here. Now look, this is so bad that I actually sort of have a little bit of hope. Let me explain. This could actually convince people to move towards something better, towards a single payer Medicare for all system. Hear me out. I know a lot of people might be like, come on, Jeff, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's super left-wing plan. We could never do that. I don't know, man. Last night, you did have Bernie Sanders holding another town hall in the middle of Trump country, West Virginia. And during that town hall, he got them to admit, yes, a single payer plan, a Medicare for all, that sounds like a great plan. That would actually help out. Then we wouldn't lose our insurance, wouldn't have to deal with insurance. It's not like there are Trump supporters out there that aren't open to this, that don't look at our problems with the ACA and go, we can do something better and actually cover everyone. Now, of course, there are some Trump supporters also that are like, no health care for anyone, unless you're rich. But there are a lot of Trump supporters out there who were left behind by the Democratic Party, who listened to Trump and listened to him saying, don't worry, we're going to cover you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to let people die in the street, because those are things that he said. And this is the thing about Republicans, too, is that they tend to run on, no, we want everyone to be covered. Now the lie is we want everyone to have access to health care. Well, access doesn't necessarily mean you're covered. But they got to say these things because they know that when you say a significant portion of Americans are going to be cut off from insurance, we don't give a shit. Well, obviously, that's going to make a lot of people very, very angry because people like their insurance. People like having this insurance and having the option of getting this insurance. So this is saying is that single payer is a possibility. If you have people out there that start talking about it, having serious discussions about this and pushing this as a policy and saying, no, we actually know how we can cover people. We can cover people. We can cover everyone, and we can do it cheaper than the insurance companies can. This is how. You sell that message to people, and even Trump supporters, they'll respond. There is hope, okay? As long as we keep fighting for it, as long as we start messaging on it, then we will win. Just got to fight for it. All right. Now, I talked about the amount of people losing their health care, how the Republicans don't give a shit. Well, this is next story encapsulates that. Now, Rick Santorum is going to go on CNN to defend Trump Care, especially after the disastrous CBO numbers have came out. And what he's going to do is that he's actually going to argue that 14 million people losing their health insurance in the first year and a total of 24 million over the next 10 years isn't actually such a bad thing. In fact, we kind of expected it. Let's take a look.
You look at those headlines and you got to say, ouch, don't you?
Oh, yeah, those good headlines. And as you reported, I mean, they're really not unexpected headlines. I mean, as Speaker Ryan said, if you don't mandate something and you're going to cut some of the subsidies that are in place, of course, fewer people are going to get insurance, go out and buy insurance. But the overall direction is correct. I mean, there will be fewer people that will be insured. We're going to spend a lot less money. The deficit's going to come down. And this is what's not talked about, I think over time, as the market adjusts, you're going to see lower costs. You're going to see more plans offered that are lower cost plans, particularly for younger people who even today are not in the market, get in that market.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to break this down. So to Rick Santorum, less people insured is somehow a good thing. But wait, I thought the whole point of healthcare reform was to get more people covered. Isn't that the whole point of insurance? I mean, I guess they don't quite understand, and I've seen this. Paul Ryan And now Rick Santorum, they don't understand how this whole insurance thing is supposed to work. You want more people to get covered, not less. Well, either they don't know how it works or they don't care how it works. Now, look, Santorum is right about one thing. Now, according to the CBO numbers, there will be some costs on the premiums itself that will go down. That doesn't necessarily include copays and deductibles. And see, that's the stuff that they never tell you about this. But basically, if you're 21 years old making about $68,000 a year, well, you're going to end up saving money on your premiums. Well, good for you. But if you're 64 years old and making about $24,000 a year, you're going to end up paying about $14,000 in premiums alone. That is insane. Nobody can afford that. If you're making $24,000 a year, can you afford to pay $14,000 in just premiums? No way. No way, no how. Not happening. That's insanity. But of course, Rick Santorum is going to go on to defend this by saying, well, hey, it just leads to more choice. Either pay our ransom or die. Take a look.
Well, we do believe in choice, and what the Obamacare never did was give people choices. It ratcheted up the benefits for everyone, and then
it did have
dramatically
requirements, Senator, for certain things that are important for people to have, right? I mean, it included, and maybe you would disagree, but some things that people would want to have, like maternity care, as an example.
Well, I mean, for little sisters of the poor, they don't need maternity care. So people should be able to buy the policy they want. And that's really a basic understanding that Republicans have said from the very beginning, that you shouldn't be forced to have coverages that you don't want to have covered. And whether it's abortion coverage or a whole host of other things, those things should not be included. But how does an insurance
market work, right? I mean, you need to have kids to have a society function. And if only people who are having pay for maternity care when they're having babies, that's going to become exponentially expensive. Just to take this one example, right? It doesn't work without everyone paying for it.
No, I understand that, but look, what Obamacare did was put a lot of requirements, a lot of things in these, loaded up these plans that are very expensive plans that aren't necessary for people, particularly a lot of younger workers who we want to get into the system.
Whoa, okay. This is great. Erin Burnett, and that's somebody who I've criticized, rightly so, because she seems to always defend the banks and the rich and powerful, go after Rick Santorum. She schooled his ass. You don't actually understand how this works, do you? I mean, you got to have this for this insurance to work, right? They don't know. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't get what the whole point of insurance. The whole point of insurance is to get covered for stuff that you might not need yet. For example, you might not be that person. You use their analogy, right, with maternity care. You might not be pregnant now, but maybe later on you are. Or maybe there's like an accident, and that happens. Accidental pregnancy, that happens. That happens, right? And so, look, you could say, well, what does a 64-year-old need with maternity care? What goes to help other people pay for stuff? Again, the whole point of insurance is to spread out risk and to have a large pool of money of people paying into this system to be able to cover everyone else who needs that insurance. You start doing some of this a la carte stuff, well, okay, then you're going to have less money to cover the people who actually need it. That's the whole point of insurance, again, is to spread out that risk. Again, Rick Santorum has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, okay? But look, again, it's for preparing for things that might happen. Now, finally, after blaming Obamacare for being a failure, right, as you saw there, you had Gene Sperling, who's also on this show, to look, the guy finally had enough of listening to the bullshit and decided to go off on him. This is my favorite part. Let's take a look.
I cannot understand why a Republican governor or Republican senators would be for this when it's going to hurt their own citizens. And I appreciate Senator Santorum mentioning moments we were bipartisan, but I don't agree with him in this case. In terms of Medicaid, you want a guarantee for people who with disabilities on nursing homes. I don't want to make state governors have to ration health care so that and mean 15 million less people are on because of Medicaid, cutting $880 billion. And let's be honest, that's not about health care reform. That is to pay for the tax relief in this that goes mostly top 1%. And here's one thing everyone should think of. Of all the savings in this bill, are any on special interest on health care? Are any on the drug companies? Are any on high-income Americans? No. All of it is on people with disabilities and nursing home and near poor who rely on subsidies and Medicaid. How is that a just way to deal with health care? There's fixes we need. We should do in a bipartisan way. This bill gets a failing grade, and I don't think senators on the Republican side even want to see it come over to their chamber.
Damn. Look, yes, how is that a just way to deal with health care? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's not. It's not just. Like, for people who are against, who are against the ACA, or even against things like Medicare for all, like, you got to understand, the whole thing, this bill, this isn't about health care. The whole thing, the whole fight over the ACA was all about tax cuts for the rich. Okay? If you were, look, if you followed all these Republican politicians, and you heard of them say all this stuff about the Obamacare is such a bad bill, it's so terrible. It's actually, look, it's not that they care about your premiums. They don't care about your premiums being too high. They don't care about your deductibles being too high. We care about it. Progressives care about it, which is why we put forward a Medicare for all system. That's why we talk about a single payer. That's why we talk about a public option. But these Republicans, all they care about is getting tax cuts for the rich. That's what it's about. The biggest beneficiaries of this plan are rich people and younger rich people. And Rick Santorum knows it, and yet he cannot justify. He can't defend this. He can't justify it. You can talk about freedom and choice all you want, but as soon as people start seeing those higher premiums, they're going to be pissed. And rightly so. But see, if it gets to that point, if they actually pass this, Trump and the Republicans, they're again not going to care because they've already won. They've already passed this. Their wealthy donors have already got their tax cuts, and you are stuck with a piece of shit. That's what. So what's the next move? Well, look, the next move is how we deal with this, okay? I think if this goes through, and again, I've said it before, this could pave the way for a single-payer healthcare system. This monstrosity of a bill, or as a liberal redneck calls it, an abortion of a bill, might actually get people sick and tired enough of our for-profit healthcare system and move us towards something better. Something that's more single-payer, that's a Medicare for all option. And I got to tell you guys, everybody at home, if you want that, then you've got to keep fighting for it. Okay? It's not just about trying to save the ACA. This is about trying to move forward. This is trying to get a Medicare for all system, something that actually truly covers everyone and is better. And I keep hoping for that day to come. And I will not stop fighting until we get that system. Okay. So let's talk about the Democrats. Pretty harsh on Trump. Now I'm gonna crush the Democrats. That's great. New poll out this week shows that the Democratic Party is in a world of trouble. Now, this poll was conducted by Suffolk University, and it basically broke down the popularity ratings of the Democratic Party compared to the Republican Party, Congress, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Mike Pence. So let me tell you the results, and then we'll break it down. Now, what you had here, actually, the most popular person on this poll was Mike Pence, with a 47% popularity rating and a 37% or 35% unpopularity rating. Now you had Donald Trump, which was next, with a 45% approval rating and a 47% disapproval rating. Now that's up. That is up by quite a bit, actually. So he's actually seen quite a big bump. The GOP is not faring quite as well. They're at a 37% popularity rating, approval rating, and a 48% disapproval rating. The media at 37% approval, 50% disapproval. The Democratic Party is at 36% approval and a 52% disapproval. Hillary Clinton, 35% approval, 55% disapproval, and Congress, everybody hates Congress. Everybody fucking hates Congress. So, look, again, here you have Donald Trump, who's still technically underwater, actually doing better in the polls than he had before, and Hillary Clinton doing worse. Disaster. Look at the Democrats, though. The Democratic Party as a whole. 36% approval rating. 52% unfavorable. Jesus. Why? It's pretty simple, man. They have not learned their lesson. Hillary Clinton, again, 35% unfavorable. Or, I'm sorry, favorable. 55 unfavorable. Now, look, this is funny because remember the election, right? This is somebody who polled better in the election than Donald Trump and won 3 million more votes. And now she is much more unpopular than Donald Trump. That, look, any Democrat should look at that and say that is an unmitigated disaster. An absolute disaster. And look, this shows what we have been saying on the progressive side all along. Hillary Clinton doesn't have any support, and she never had any support. Never had any support. Look, people don't like her. They don't trust her. They never have. She had zero excitement. There was nobody was excited for her. All she did is that she had a big name and a giant pile of money. And apparently that's all you need for the establishment to try to shove her down the country's throat. Look, I told you before, this during the primary, during the election, I live in Michigan, and during this election, I did my fair, my fair amount of travel, and I looked for signs. I looked for Hillary Clinton signs, and I saw none. Trump signs everywhere. Trump signs that I was like, oh man, if you're a Democrat, you should be really, really worried. You should be super worried about this. I don't see any Hillary Clinton signs. None. Come on. Come on. Now, again, I was worried even before that. I have videos going back to the primaries warning the Democrats not to nominate Hillary Clinton. I said she will absolutely lose. She will absolutely lose. Do not nominate Hillary Clinton. What did they do? Well, look, they nominated Hillary Clinton. I also said that if you keep taking big corporate money, the Democrats, and put up an establishment candidate, you are going to lose. You're absolutely going to lose. And that's exactly what happened. I'm not rubbing it in here. That's the last thing I want to do. I'm not happy Donald Trump is president. I'm frankly pissed off. I'm not happy that 24 million people are going to lose their health care, their health insurance. Okay, that thousands of people will end up dying from lack of health care. I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy that the rich are going to get richer under Donald Trump. I was trying to warn you so that you didn't make this mistake. And you know what happened? I got called a Bernie bro. Bernie bro. Sexist. All that bullshit from just trying to warn the Democrats away from making the biggest political blunder in history. And that's what happened. And I watched a lot of my friends, good people, get called the same thing. These were women. These were people of color. And yes, also white guys. Okay? They all wanted to be part of the political revolution to make this country better. And you know what happened? The DNC fucking screwed them. That's what happened. And even after the election, the Democrats had a chance to push the party in a more progressive direction. And what did they do? What did they do? They put in Tom Perez as chair of the DNC. Tom fucking Perez, another member of the corporate establishment. They voted to continue taking money from large corporate donors. That was another vote that they did. No, disaster. Especially considering we just had an election where the corporate establishment was thoroughly rebuked by the entire country. How can the Democrats continue to double down on the very same failed strategy that cost them an entire presidential election. And it's not just a presidency, by the way. It cost them the White House, it cost them the Senate, and the Democratic Party all over the states has been absolutely fucking decimated. Come on, come on. Not only is losing to the boy King Trump a national embarrassment, but now polling even less than Trump and the Republicans, despite the fact that Republican policies exist only to solely fuck poor people in the ass so that the donors can make an extra buck. Incredibly embarrassing. They're fucking useless, the Democratic Party. Get your heads out of your asses, Democrats. You're a goddamn failure and a goddamn embarrassment to the country. FDR is rolling in his fucking grave right now. What an colossal failure. Colossal. You know what you got to do? You got to give people something to vote for, okay? Give people a vision. Bernie Sanders has a vision. Oh, but we didn't want that. We didn't want that. That's not realistic. And it involved not taking donor money. Too pie in the sky, man. We cannot have radical change. You know what we're going to have? The establishment. Status quo. Steady as we go. Let's not rock the boat. You know why? Because that upsets our donors. Our donors aren't going to make as much money. God. Like, you keep doing this, Democrats, and you will become completely irrelevant. You've got to stop. You've got to stop. You've got to give people a vision. You've got to get away from that corporate money. I mean, look, speaking of vision, right? Does anybody even know what the Democrats stand for anymore? Do they? Do you? I don't know. What did Hillary Clinton stand for? I don't know. And you know what? If I don't know following politics, how's the average person going to know? You know that most of Hillary Clinton's ads were negative, right? And they focus not on policy issues, but on how bad Donald Trump is, how bad of a person. Well, he's a racist, he's a sexist. You know what? All that stuff is true. But you don't run a campaign on that. That's a losing campaign. And it makes you look like a loser, which is exactly what the Democratic Party looks like now. A bunch of losers. And you know what they're doing now still? Oh, resist, resist, resist. We got to resist. We got to resist Trump. Everything he does. No, you know what you got to do? Yes, resist. Great. Great. But how about also showing us what you plan on doing? What's your plan to fix healthcare? How will you fix student loan debt? What are you going to do about it? How will you protect Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid? Are you going to raise the minimum wage? Are you going to fight for that? The progressive groups all over the country are fighting for that, are fighting for those very things. Where are the mainstream Democrats? Where are you? Where are you, Tom Perez? Are you out there fighting? Hell no. No, what they're doing is they're voting to take more corporate money. Shameful. Fucking disaster. God. And that's not even good. Look, the question here, and what most Americans want, the politicians to stop taking corporate money and to stop being influenced by special interests. Is the Democratic Party going to do that? Going to stop doing that? No. They're going to keep taking that corporate money. And if you keep doing so, then you are fucking useless. Fucking useless. And you're going to continue to lose election after election. And maybe they don't care about that. Maybe all they care about is just to get the fucking money. And that's it. That's why we either replace them, or we build a new party, or we do both. Hey, look, maybe if we do both, and I'm a proponent of that, maybe we'll be successful one way or the other. If one thing fails, then you have something to back you up. But all I can say now, the Democrats are a fucking disaster. And if they don't do something to change, then they're going to continue being a disaster and continue losing to the worst people imaginable. Failures. Absolute fucking failures. God. All right. Let's go to our next story. Let's make fun of Pat McCrory. All right. Former governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, can't seem to find a job. Oh, sad day. In an interview with World Radio Podcast, according to the News and Observer, McCrory said that the controversial bill, bathroom bill HB2 that he passed in North Carolina, is preventing him from getting a job. Oh, fascinating. Now, of course, that bill got a lot of backlash, causing the state to be boycotted and ended up losing them millions of dollars in revenue. And people looked at that state and were like, North Carolina, why would I want to go there? There's a bunch of bigots there. We don't care about that. You drop this HB2 bill, and then we'll come back. Great. Except that he didn't. And except that he was like, no, I believe in this bill. I believe in being an asshole. Whoa, that's fantastic. Now, in this interview, he lamented about how holding fast to his conservative principles on this bill impacts him to this day. He says, even after I left office, people are reluctant to hire me because, oh my gosh, he's a bigot. Well, that is the last thing that I am. That is the last thing that I am, he says. Really? Are you sure? You realize that that law, the impacts of that law were actually pretty bigoted, pretty hateful. Now, of course, instead of taking responsibility and saying that this law was wrong, guess what he does? He blames the Democrats. Of course. He said, quote, if you disagree with the politically correct thought police on this new definition of gender, you're a bigot. You're the worst kind of evil. It's almost as if I broke a law. Aw, bigot has us sad. Let's all feel bad for Pat McCrory, that special snowflake. No, you realize what makes you a bigot is that you picked on a minority group that is powerless and often victimized. Do you know, according to data, 50% of transgender individuals have reported being sexually assaulted in this country. 50%. Jesus Christ, man. So what happens? I mean, this is what happens when you make a trans woman go into a men's bathroom. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Especially if you send them in a place like North Carolina. Come on. We all know what's going to happen. Look, trans people have a history of being demonized, mocked, attacked, and even murdered. There was a viral video going around on Facebook of a Brazilian transgender woman being brutally beaten and murdered. This happens a lot more often than you would think. These people are victims. Okay? They're not the predators. They're the victims. And what Pat McCrory did is that he victimized them even further. This wasn't even an issue until he brought it up and politicized it. There were places in North Carolina, they're like, you know what? We're going to protect our trans population. McCrory steps in and said, fuck no, you're not. We need to demonize those people. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to take a non-existent problem and come up with a solution. Probably to distract people from how shitty living in North Carolina is. Just saying. Look, that's why you're a bigot, Pat McCrory. It's not the liberal thought police coming after you. I don't give a damn what you think. But what it is that it's public decency. It's human decency, man. Who gives a fuck what bathrooms people use? I don't give a shit. Most people don't give a shit. And all this became a problem when you decided to politicize it. Like an asshole. Yeah, you know what? He is the worst kind of evil because he lacks any sort of empathy to people who are attacked, shamed, and demonized for just being who they are. Now, as far as not being able to find a job, well, that's an easy one. Again, this isn't because of the liberal thought police. It comes down to economics. Turns out transgender people, their money is just as green as everybody else's. So if you hire a bigot, well, transgender people, they're not going to want to spend their money. And people who care about transgender people, or people who are just good, decent, honest people that don't like when you hate on others, well, they don't want to shop at a company that associates with your ass. This is essentially the hand of the free market slapping you upside the head for being an idiot, for being a bigot, for being a terrible person. That's what happened. Can you tell I'm angry today? But wait, we got one more story here. And this might actually make you even more angry. All right. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump has given the CIA power to launch drone strikes. Uh-oh. Now, this new authority is a change in drone policy from the Obama administration, citing U.S. officials. Now, under President Obama, of course, the CIA used drones to find suspected terrorists, sometimes instead finding weddings and funerals, but left it to the military to actually launch these strikes themselves. Again, possibly hitting these civilian targets. Now, this new authority given out by Donald Trump makes it even worse. Now, U.S. officials say that the new authority under Trump is for the CIA's operation in Syria. But according to the Wall Street Journal, the CIA may be able to conduct its own drone strikes in other areas as well. For example, Yemen, or some of the other countries that we're conducting operations in. That look, the sad thing is we don't even know how many different countries that we are operating drones in right now. Places in Africa, places in the Middle East, Pakistan. I don't know if I say that, Pakistan. Not really worried about how to pronounce it at this point, but we're doing drone operations in a lot of different countries that a lot of the public doesn't even know that we're actually doing things, and we're killing innocent people there. We're not just going after terrorists. Yes, we do take out terrorists, and I'm fine when you actually take out the right people, but when you're attacking civilians, blowing up weddings and funerals, that's a bit of an issue. In fact, that's a huge issue. Now, Christopher Anders, who is the deputy director of the ACLU, the Washington office, said, quote, "There's a lot of problems with the drone program and the targeted killing program, but the CIA should be out of the business of ordering lethal strikes." He says the CIA should be in foreign intelligence gathering and analysis organization, not a paramilitary one, which unfortunately this order says, no, CIA, go ahead and be a paramilitary organization. Go ahead and attack people. Go ahead and do these strikes in the Middle East. Don't worry, it'll be fantastic. This is scary, man. As if the drone program under President Barack Obama wasn't bad enough. And again, I was out there criticizing it for its lack of transparency and lack of accountability. And oh yeah, the fact that we continue to bomb innocent civilians. In fact, we killed more innocent people than we killed terrorists using this program. And why, right? Well, that doesn't make sense. Okay, well, how would we end up killing more people? But we say we kill more terrorists. Well, it's because of the way that they counted terrorists. Now, all the way back in 2012, the New York Times reported that that basically the government counted all military-aged males in the area of a strike as combatants. No, we took out a whole bunch of people, but they were all they're all bad guys, so don't worry about that, okay? Well, wait a minute. They weren't bad guys. They're at a wedding, or they were doing something innocuous, like walking around or talking on a cell phone. Why are they counted as terrorists? Well, because we didn't have any proof that they weren't terrorists. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And look, you had signature strikes, of course, criticizing that during the Obama era. Now, of course, we're still going to use those. And we haven't stopped using those. And again, for the people that were killed, right, the military-aged males that were considered to be terrorists, the only way that you would not be considered a terrorist if you're in that area as a military-aged male is if you were posthumously cleared of that wrongdoing or possible wrongdoing. So basically, you have to be cleared after you're dead. Oh, sorry. You don't want to be counted as a terrorist. First, we have to kill you and then prove you weren't a terrorist afterwards. Sorry, man, you're dead. Turns out that gathering that we bombed earlier, it was a wedding party. Oops. Sorry. I got some disastrous numbers on that. On how many innocent people were killed through the drone program. And again, this was under Barack Obama. Between January 2012 and February 2013, The Intercept reports U.S. Special Operations airstrikes killed more than 200 people. Of those, only 35 were intended targets. During one 5-month period of the operation, according to the documents, nearly 90% of the people killed in airstrikes were not intended targets. But that's okay. Some of them were military-age males. So they're a target anyway. This is what happened under a Democrat. Imagine the carnage that the Trump administration is now free to commit. This child just empowered the CIA to kill more people with drones. Oh, but you know what? It's not going to happen over here in America. And look, those people that are being they're Muslims anyway, so they're all dangerous. So fire away. Bombs away, man. But as I pointed out, a lot of these people were innocent. Now, look, what happens when you bomb an innocent person or you bomb their family and these people are killed by American drones? You know what's going to happen? They're going to get pissed at America. They might even get radicalized and end up joining the terrorists. You know why? Because those people, we bomb their home if they haven't done anything, bomb their family, kill their wedding party. What's going to happen? They're going to think that we are the terrorists. Well, we're just fighting the terrorists. We're fighting the invaders. They're coming over here. They're bombing our shit. Well, how would you, like, if you were living in Texas and Mexico decides to come and bomb you with a drone? Are you not going to want revenge? Of course. Of course. And the people over in the Middle East, they see that might think, hey, you know, maybe that Al-Qaeda's onto something. Maybe they're right. America is the enemy. Look, that's not the way that we need to fight terrorism, okay? You don't fight terror by doing things that would create more terrorists, okay? You don't end drone strikes by handing over even more power to the CIA. That's not how you do this. But in Trump world, it's like, I don't know, let's bomb more people. Let's bomb the terrorists and there are no more terrorists. There's always going to be more terrorists. Always. Until you actually go after the root cause. You go after the ideology. But again, nobody's going to listen to me. But look, this whole thing, this is going to be more of a disaster than when Obama was using these drone powers. Now, what's funny is I wonder how many Republican senators are now going to come out on the record against this. My guess, not very many. Where are you, Rand Paul? Are you going to come out and say, be against this? I hope so. I hope so. We'll see. Now, this also makes me think of some of the liberals who also defended the drone strikes under Barack Obama. They're also hypocrites. There's also an element of hypocrisy here. So don't think I'm just going after the Republicans. When again, I was one of the ones criticizing the Obama administration for doing the exact same thing. Maybe not as big in scope as the Trump administration will go. But this isn't a partisan issue. This is an issue that is very, very important that should transcend party line. Using these drones, it's ineffective. It kills more civilians than it does terrorists, and we need to rein in these people. We need to rein in the CIA. We need to rein in the drone program. We need to stop with the extrajudicial killings of non-Americans and Americans, by the way. I've been very clear about this whole thing. The president should not have this power. The CIA should not have this power. No one should have this power. It has to go through proper channels with transparency and oversight. It needs to be reined in, not expanded, and definitely not given over to a secret organization. It's not the right way to go. All right. That's all I've got for you today. Later on tonight, I'm going to do an interview with Dan Cohen from the Real News Network. I'm going to post that up tonight as well. So look forward to that. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Thank everybody for going around the nation with me today. You guys are awesome. Special shout out to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation, for supporting the show, keeping us independent and non-corporate sponsored. So thank you so much. Make sure, if you haven't already, like and share this video. Subscribe. We'll have videos up going on starting about 6 o'clock tonight. We'll have the clips out for today if you missed any of the show. And we'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here, TYT Nation. So we'll have live stream. We have live streams 5 days a week, Mondays at 4 p.m. and Tuesday through Friday at 3 p.m., 3 to 4 right here. So tune into those. Thanks again for watching. I love you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.